spouses and partners of Reddit. What red flags are you glad you ignored? Story 1, the serial killer room. I went home with him for the first time to a completely blank room. No personal possessions, white bedspread and pillows. The windows had bars on them. I gave him a cool picture for his walls, didn't get murdered, and been living together 2 years now. He's just tidy. Story 2, I mistook my husband's relaxed attitude with not caring. Nope, he really is that easygoing. Now, I love his even temperament, sometimes is annoying, but is mostly calming. Story 3, my partner had a string of crazy ex-girlfriends, which is usually a massive red flag. Turns out he has really low self-esteem and ended up with these awful girls because he didn't think he deserved any better. He'd keep trying to work on the relationship way away, beyond the point most people would bail. After them gaslighting, cheating, burning his belongings, etc. I'm so glad I ignored that red flag. He's the sweetest guy, and their crazy was completely not his fault, beyond poor judgment dating them in the first place, lol. Story 4, I thought she was too sensitive, especially since I'm the complete opposite of that. She brings joy and excitement to my life, and I wouldn't change a thing now. Story 5, when I met my wife and we became more and more intimate, she opened up to me and told me she didn't want to have secrets from me. She then proceeded to tell me the story how she had spent some time in a psychiatric clinic recently and what she had been through. I was a little bit scared first, but she managed to convince me that she had made a full recovery. She told me she went full jackpot with me and risked me getting up and leaving her, but she didn't want to build our relationship on a lie. We have been married for 15 years now, and she's the love of my life. Story 6, she doesn't like pancakes. It is still annoying, and she says I should just make them for myself, but I'm like, how am I going to make pancakes for one person? God? She's super great, though, so I'm over it. Story 7, we are the complete opposite. I love to flit around, not staying anywhere too long, and live in the short term without any kind of planning on impulse. She hates the idea of being without a long-term plan and knows exactly what she wants to do with the rest of her life. She has managed to help me sort out some kind of realistic path for the rest of my life or lives. And I've managed to get her on a rough plan tour of Asia, keep going till the money runs out. We have managed to develop the parts of our personalities that made life difficult for us, and each individually blossomed as a pair. We are currently on our way to Malaysia, and I've managed to stash a ring in my backpack. She makes me excited for the rest of my life. At it, she said yes. Story 8, he had severe depression, no job, had dropped out of uni, lived at home with his parents, and on meeting him, clearly autistic, he's wonderful, the kindest, gentlest man I've ever met. He works so hard to overcome so much all the time, despite it being so difficult for him. He supports me through everything unquestioningly, put in hours of effort to help me through my degree and professional exams, and when I was pushing for promotion, he always has time for me. No matter what, we've been together 8 years, married for 6 years. He got his degree through distance learning and is now doing a master's and has a job. He achieved so much, and he just needed some love and support to get there. I'm so lucky to have him. Story 9, my wife is super smart, and I'm pretty average. She's doing incredible things in school, and I didn't even graduate. She's really intimidating. She looks past that and recognizes what I'm good at and praises me for them. She's the best. Story 10, both of our families were worried the 7-year age gap would be a big hurdle to overcome. I was 20 and she 27, 11 years together and 5 years married. It's never been an issue. Edit, wow, it's so cool to hear so many stories similar to ours. Story 11, went on our second date. He was super nervous and giving me some real timid guy vibes. He was doing this thing where he would look at me and nervously bite his lip. At the time, I had only ever dated super macho, very confident men. It was a real turn-off, and I distinctly remember thinking, ugh, okay, just get through this date. Best decision ever 6. 5 years later, he's my husband, and the best thing that ever happened to me. He is just the best thing in the world, and I couldn't give about those type of guys I used to go for. I'm so glad I ended up with him because he's exactly what I need. He's way braver and more confident in himself than the kind of man I thought I was into. And his lip-biting thing, when he's nervous, is rare and super cute. I really love my husband. Gonna go tell him again. Edit, why you guys are so sweet. I had no idea so many people would relate to our story. Husband thinks we are famous now. He's just taken off his trousers in the hallway, yelled, I don't remember, stop asking me, giving me a kiss, and gone upstairs to play on his PlayStation. Love is real, guys. Story 12, my boyfriend came onto me really fast and strong, which I've always been told was a red flag. Asked me out 3 days after meeting me. Told me he loved me a week later, wanted to get married after 4 months. Turns out whirlwind romances do exist because we're perfect for each other and still going strong 5 years later. Story 13, bit of a twist in that I was the partner with all the red flags. My now husband was pretty against dating someone with mental health issues when we started going out. Due to bad past experiences, I've got bipolar disorder, and the history of abuse that left me with a screwed-up relationship with. In retrospect, I was the opposite of what he was looking for, but he stayed because he realized I was working my off to get better, and he's still amazed at the progress I've made. I think he realized that mental illness and trauma are not necessarily red flags if the person with them isn't using you as a crutch. Story 14, he said he was involuntarily celibate. Thankfully, he just meant that he hadn't had in a while despite wanting to. Not that he believed women were beholden to give him because he is male. He hadn't even heard of incels. Thank God. Story 15, my spouse's very weird and unusual sense of humor. I was afraid he was mentally unstable. He would draw weird cartoons, mimic people's voices and mannerisms creepily accurate, and tell the craziest stories. Turns out he's just hilarious, and he usually keeps me belly laughing once a week. Story 16, how shed worry over the smallest things. Anything that went wrong, dentist, food going off, traffic, not having enough time to wash her hair would send her into a panic and put her in a foul mood that could last for hours, and the exact opposite, completely laid back. If the dentist doesn't have good news, he'll accept it and not worry. If food goes off, he'll pop down to the shops and grab some more. And if we're late because of traffic, that's just how it goes. I thought our moods would be the thing to end us, to slowly wear down my patience to a point where I'd stop trying to comfort, reassure, and calm her down. I was wrong, reader. I've never been happier. And we're good for each other. I can calm her down, and she can make me care about things I didn't used to think were a big deal, but ultimately are. We work so well together. Story 17, I was always told to date a man that treats his mom right and is a family man because I could expect him to treat me the right way. My so hates his mom and has always been private about his family. We celebrate 7 years together next month, and I've never regretted looking past the family thing. Story 18, my fiance's previous marriage. We met on Tinder, and at the time we were both fairly young. I was 23, he was 25, and I wasn't really looking for anything serious. I had a habit of discounting people with what I presumed might be baggage like ex-wives or kids, although he doesn't have any because it wasn't anything I felt ready to take on. However, we really hit it off, and he was always very upfront about the situation from day one. So I decided to roll with it. We've been together 5 years, are engaged, and are now expecting our first child together. Yikes. Some of y'all must be miserable judging by some of these comments. Story 19, first date. He had a machete on his truck seat and 2 ropes on the floor. I'm sorry, I've been to the ranch and I was cutting weeds. Little did I know, there were also 2 shovels under the back seat. He's a biologist and he will hunt down plants. Story 20, when I met him. My husband had just closed his comic book store. I had a few people who didn't know him at all tell me that he was a loser because he had a comic book store, and that type never does well in life. I knew his store closed for reasons out of his control business partner for cancer, sold the store to pay for treatment, and that he was seriously depressed about it. No one else seemed to see the man I did, and I felt like I was stealing him. Legit the most generous, kindest, funniest, smart dude I've ever met. I'm glad I ignored them, because I doubt I could find a better partner in life. There's been a lot of thrown at us, but we have navigated it together. I love him, and despite how much the rest of my life sucks, my marriage is resilient and healthy. Story 21, I just turned 18 when we met, and he was 24. We also happened to meet 2 months before I was leaving for college 4 hours away. The long distance sucked, and my parents weren't huge fans of the age difference, but the next fall semester he decided to follow me, and we both graduated in July. It's been 12 years since we started dating, and we're about to move in together. My parents don't care anymore about the age gap. They love him and keep asking when the wedding is. Story 22, one of my best friends in college claimed my girlfriend was a succubus. Made life a bit difficult since he was also my roommate. 2 years later, he had a brain tumor removed. My wife and I have been together now for 16 years and have a beautiful daughter. Story 23, he was kind of creepy at first, and I had to stop him. I felt like he had too many emotional issues I didn't want to deal with, and our friendship really deteriorated. But then, when he gave me the space I needed to heal from a past relationship, and I opened my mind to give him a chance, our relationship became really beautiful. He's an absolutely beautiful person. He's the best boyfriend ever. We've been together for 2 years now. He's so considerate and loving. He was just very awkward and truly didn't know what was expected from him. He's the sweetest, and I'm so happy. Story 24, my wife has a flirty personality that dudes and chicks like really fast. I was jealous out of my mind for the first few years. Angry, shaming her, controlling. Something clicked in me where I figured out that she's a human living her own life with me. Our marriage couldn't be more sexy and strong. We couldn't be more in love the last 7 years. It stemmed from me being jealous about girlfriends when I was younger. It's just how I operated. It turns out being jealous and controlling makes you a miserable person to be around. I realized, why do I deserve control? Once you ask yourself that question, You realize why you or my wife never said this to me, by the way. This was a personal journey. And once you can figure out that no one deserves control over another person, you become a more confident, in-control person yourself, which then attracts other confident, in-control people. It's basically win-win. Story 25, my husband is 6 years older and had been in a pseudo-long-distance open relationship. This girl lived in another state and essentially had him on reserve as her vacation boyfriend on her family's 3 trips to his town each year. I confirmed what the situation was with the right people and took my time to ease into asking him out and made it clear that I was interested in a serious relationship. Unlike the other girl's firm, nothing serious routine, essentially I snatched my husband off another girl's hook. Story 26, my dad always told me, I don't care who you bring home, as long as they have their own drill. I come from a family of woodworkers with a lot of DIY experience. My partner doesn't have his own drill, but he was absolutely amazing in every other way. So my dad loved him right from the start despite this egregious fault. Story 27, my wife is an immigrant, and while she's fluent, she has certain grammatical issues with her speech. It really bothered and embarrassed me. When we were first dating, I just got over it, because she's awesome. Story 28, I met him on the internet, and he's older than me. Met online when I was 12, and he was 15. He lived across the country. Met up in person when I was 16, and he was 19. Got together after that and married this year. We're now 24 and 27. Glad I ignored don't meet strangers online. However, I am an advocate for being safe online. When we met in person, I met him with 10 of my friends, just in case he was a murderer. Story 29, she had never even kissed a boy, dated anyone, nothing. She went in all-girls high school. I met her first year of college, so she knew nothing about guys or anything about anything. It took a lot of patience in the earlier parts of our relationship. Like, no, I don't want to hang 247, but that's okay and normal. Or teaching how to kiss or how to treat each other, boundaries, just like a million things it felt like sometimes. I had gone through the new relationship figuring each other out before, but this was next level, and then some ended up totally worth it. We got married a few months ago after dating almost 5 years. She is the light of my life, and her perpetual innocence always gives me ways to tease her about something. Edit for some clarification, I wouldn't trade the experiences we went through for the world. Also, no, having to teach her everything was not annoying. It just took a lot of time and felt a little silly at times, because to me some things seemed obvious. I'm aware we all start somewhere. And it wasn't surprising at all. She was just starting in college given what I know of her background. Her and I getting married is like seeing all our efforts pay off, and is the greatest prize I could ask for. The biggest reason this is a red flag to some people is because of the time investment. You spend months or even longer dealing with things that others already know how to do, and many people don't want to take the time. I was working and in school, so I wasn't sure about it either going into it. She just turned out to be an amazing person, so it was totally worth it. Story 30, just wanted to vent this out, but Mai has a crazy past. His ex-girlfriend cyberbullied me and harassed me. She was a cheater, and her fault it ended. When she found out he was with me, she would stalk his house, not anymore text message me, by creating new S every other day to tell me M-A and not my S-type LMAO. This was a big factor and challenged our relationship a lot. And there have been many, many times I just wanted to give up. My boyfriend was practically immune to her and just told me to ignore her and never gave her the slightest bit of attention. I never responded to her nasty messages, and she eventually stopped. I still get triggered from that event because it has made me paranoid, and it'll get scared shell come around again. Now my boyfriend and I are stronger together. I'm happy I could talk about this event without feeling so worked up as I did before. His past doesn't define him, and in his future now, thanks to anyone who took the time to read this. Story 31, the apartment he lived in when we first started dating was so gnarly, it was unbelievable. Not like messy or dusty or even stereotypical young adult male, but like nothing had been cleaned ever, not even one time. The grime was intense. The bathroom was a hellhole. His roommate cooked us dinner once, and I was pretty positive I was going to die. The dishes got done 3 weeks later, or not at all. He also slept on a broken futon. I ignored it because we were broke and in our early 20s, and I just liked him too much. Now we're married, and if I didn't do the cleaning, would get real very fast. Story 32, he wasn't known for long relationships. I thought he couldn't keep anyone. He is just a very unique personality that I love. Many girls found that annoying and left. Been together 5 years, been kind of friends since 7. Story 33, we started our relationship hurting from our past relationships. We swore up and down that we would be friends with benefits and nothing more cause relationships, LOL. 3 months into this fun time, I decided I liked him and wanted to be more. He told me twice he looked at me as a friend. Told myself this guy am not getting hurt again and stopped talking to him. If I hadn't decided to return that message and see him one more time and say yes to being his girlfriend, we wouldn't have 8 awesome years together and celebrated our 5-year-old daughter's birthday 3. Story 34. When I first met him, I thought he was one of those people who was too cool to like things and a bit negative. Turns out he's the sweetest, most caring, and most romantic person I've ever met. I'm so lucky. Story 35. He spent an hour of our first date talking about the elaborate way he planned to kill himself. Turns out that nobody had ever really listened to him, including his ex-wife, and he was feeling hopeless and invisible. Once he had a chance to talk some stuff through, his depression quickly faded, and he's been the best husband and co-parent I could ever want for 13 years now. Story 36. I ignored the huge red flags about his family. They were loud, overbearing, oversensitive, negative, and narcissistic. My husband's none of those things. I literally told him after meeting them that I never knew families like his really existed. Thought it was some exaggeration or dramatic trope. Fortunately, nearly 15 years later, my in-laws are all cut off or dead, and we have zero family drama. Story 37. Don't marry a poor Vietnamese girl. She will just love you for your money. Couldn't be further from the truth. Most loving and beautiful soul I have ever met. Zero red flags in all categories. She isn't jealous. Never asked for money to a fault. Cares about me more than anyone. Getting married NM South THNGMT. Love you. Story 38. She's and am a very person. I completely overlooked it on her online profile when we first started talking, and when I realized my mistake, I wasn't sure what to do. She was smart, funny, a great conversationalist, and beautiful inside and out, but I worried if I was always wanting something she couldn't provide, didn't that mean our relationship would be doomed right from the get-go? When I agreed to meet with her, I wasn't sure it was a good idea. I didn't know what to expect, but she was every bit as much a kind and amazing person in the flesh as she was in text. Also, I found out my conception was a bit oversimplified. It turns out she can have, and under the right circumstances can even enjoy it, but does not become attracted to people or desire it. In the years since, she has been nothing short of a dream. I love her as a person, and thoroughly enjoy our physical relationship too. I can't imagine my life without her. Story 39. I'm late, but I want to share anyways. In the beginning, he came on way too strong. He immediately approached me at every event he saw me. If I would catch a glimpse of him, I knew he would be standing around me within no time, sometimes not even talking to me, just joining the people I was with and standing there listening, beaming. My friends would make jokes about it and make bets of how long he could bear to wait until he came over. Once at a pub quiz, he got our team disqualified because he kept excitingly joining in, but we already had too much people. He tried hard to spend time with me. While I would tell him I was too busy with an assignment, he would suggest a homework date. Not getting any hints, and just genuinely being excited that we found something we could do together. For some reason, he would show his affection by fixing small things in my room around him, like neatly rearranging my cables while we talked. At our first official date, going out for a drink, he would talk nonstop about himself and about his ex that he had broken up with just a month before. That was a red flag. And him being all over me was too. I turned him down. But by then, I had already started to get fond of him, and that grew during the months when I had some space to reflect on it. Then when I was with someone else and I found him too drunk at some party, he tapped on my shoulder and he said to me something like, "Hey, I am ready to go home now." His best friend immediately took over because my date was with me and took him home. But him saying that made me realize that I actually wanted to be the one to take him home and reassure him. Now together for almost 2 years, taking him home ever since, have never won any pub quizzes again, and have excellent cable management now. 1010 can recommend. Story 40. My wife, for as long as I've known her, has been incredibly driven, always organized, has an action plan and a backup plan for everything. Definitely a lot more mature than I am probably ever be. She's a very typical type A person, in the complete opposite of that. Go with the flow, no organization, procrastinate nearly everything I did. While we were dating, I was really worried that she'd leave me because of how I am personally. However, we both complement each other really well. She makes sure I'm accountable for what needs to be gets done, helps me stay on track. And, as she puts it, I reminded her to have some fun now and again. I'm really fortunate to have her in my life and that she accepts me for who I am through all of my quirks. Story 41. I thought he was way too clingy and loved stuffed animals a lot, and a little too attached to stuff. He turned out to be a guy with a big heart who taught me a lot about caring for people, who mellowed out a lot. He's working on a sentimentality and having too much stuff. He likes having space for living in too. Story 42. His offensive jokes. It was all an attempt to hide terrible self-esteem. He also had still does sometimes no idea about why certain comments were all wrong. Children of bigot can turn out to be wonderful people. That being said, if I wasn't in my I can save the world phase, I probably would have told him to sod off. Story 43, I gave my number to a good-looking guy who approached me in a bar and forgot about it. Around 2 a.m. that night, I got drunk dialed by someone I thought was my male housemate. He identified himself with that name and said he was standing outside and to please let him in because it was cold. My housemate at the time did have a habit of locking himself out and doing hilarious dumb while drunk. I went outside and saw nothing. I looked up and down the street while the guy on the phone insisted he was there. After talking to him some more, I realized the guy on the phone wasn't my roommate, but the guy ID given my number to earlier that night. He just had the same name as my housemate. He was just massively drunk, had lost his wallet and keys. Later that night, he cab home without realizing he had no wallet, and the cab driver called the cops on him in front of his building. Apparently, had just gotten out of a terrible relationship and was drinking himself into a stupor. I was single and bored and had nothing better going on, and he seemed like a nice enough guy. I let all this slide when he told me about it on our first date, including his recent cheating girlfriend. We've been married for 4 years now and have 2 kids together. Drinking heavily and being stupid is not something I've seen him do since the night we met. The situation with his ex just really messed with his head. Story 44, when we first arranged to go out, he kept offering to pick me up in his car and drive to the place, even though I live on the other side of London to him, and we were meeting fairly central, so it made no sense. He then said if he couldn't pick me up, he's driving me home. Since it was online dating we talked on, I was a bit worried that he was a serial killer because he seemed very eager to get me in his car. Turns out he was just a gentleman. They do still exist. Story 45, heroin addiction, and all the sketchy cheating behaviors that go along with addiction. Our first year together was awful. It started out as casual. I thought he was still in recovery at the time, then that led to feelings, and then a tumultuous hell of a ride. I was in denial about my own alcoholism and drug binges. He would chat up girls via social media and lie to me about using. He ran back to an old girlfriend. What did I mention? He's 7 years younger than me. Red flags everywhere. Anyways, long story short, we got pregnant, then we got clean and sober, and we fell madly in love with the true nature of who we are as recovering addicts. I trust him with every fiber of my being, and we now are married with our 3rd child, due into January. I know Reddit hates God, but we founded our relationship on Christ, recovery, and a dark sarcasm that makes our world go round. Love him with my whole heart, and I know he loves me back with as much enthusiasm. Edit to add another red flag is he still lived with his mommy and daddy, and yet he's been an outstanding provider for our family, so that I may be a psalm. Story 46, when I first met my fiancé, he was incredibly shy and quiet. I have a very outgoing personality, and I'm extremely socially. I've been able to draw him out of his shell, and he gives me balance. I've learned it's okay to say no to events and just relax. I'm glad I looked past his shyness. Story 47, my partner was a bit scary at school. She was always getting in fights and was a bit of a nutcase. It was known that she had a rough upbringing and had some form of mental problems. I met her at a party when we were 21 and got chatting. We ended up seeing each other regularly after that, and she was completely the opposite of how she was at school, kind, funny, and beautiful. It's been nearly 8 years now, and we have beautiful boy and girl twins. Sadly, our son has been very sick in a hospital a few hours from home for 9 months, but he is getting stronger every day, and I wouldn't have gotten through it without her, and I would do it all over again if I got the chance. Story 48, the morning after we first met, we met at a party, and ID stayed over, he told me, fully serious, that he wanted to be a bear. He also told me that morning how he only likes hoodies with one front pocket because it makes him feel like a kangaroo mama. Really weirded me out. That was the kind of thing he'd tell someone he basically just met. Turns out that said a lot more about his honesty than anything else. He is the kindest, most generous, rational, and caring man I've ever met, and just the right amount of weird for me. Story 49, he had a side gig as a puppeteer and used to use the plastic eyes from secondhand stuffed animals for the puppets. So when I met him, I found a bag of eyeless stuffed animals. I made him show me the puppets for proof before getting over it. He's the best, though, and we've been married for over a decade with a family. Story 50, she wanted us to not tell people we were dating. Wondered whether that was a red flag about, and whether she would be willing to commit to a relationship. A few months later, we made it public, and we are now married. Turns out she felt that I could be the one and didn't want to jeopardize it by having people gossip. Story 51, my husband is extremely social and outgoing, which is great, but he also is slightly rough around the edges, like he is not really concerned about his image, and sometimes just says, does, and wears what he wants without thinking of how it looks to other people. At first, I was not sure what to think of him, but I'm glad I got to know him, because he is one of the most genuine and trustworthy people I have ever met. Story 52, the fact he was my housemate, and thus I knew that he saved up his laundry for when he visited his mother's house every fortnight. A 5-hour drive away. At age 24, I was a touch worried that he would be as reliant on me as he clearly was on his mother. And also that the relationship could end in flames and make all friends in common immensely uncomfortable. We kept it non-physical for 3 months, kill me, to play it safe, and he showed me time and time again how he was willing and able to step up to be a reliable and equal partner. 16 years later, I'm so grateful we gave it a go. Story 53 didn't ever meet her parents. 1 year and 2 months later, she finally opens up her shell and tells me that they died in a car accident days before we met. Story 54, her inability to relax and not be working on or towards something. I have slowly been able to get her to give herself some me time, and she has worked so hard that even after I got laid off, we were still able to afford in vitro when we had fertility issues and now have 2 gorgeous twin daughters. Story 55, now husband, was not a great speller. I worried I was too smart for him. He is still not a great speller and knows this. But getting to know him, I learned he is smarter than me in all sorts of other ways that complement our relationship nicely. Not to mention, turn out he reads even more than I do and actually is a wonderful writer. He just has to utilize spell check more frequently. His sisters are the same way, so we think he might have some form of dyslexia. In any case, the old Einstein quote about not judging a fish by how it can climb a tree comes to mind. Story 56, she hid $10,000 of credit card debt from me. Turned out it wasn't a shopping addiction or anything. She had to pay for a semester of college on credit cards because she didn't qualify for student loans and her parents wouldn't co-sign for her. She was really ashamed and angry about it. Happily married for 10 years at this point, and she's turned out to be more responsible with money than I am, or at least more conservative with it. Story 57, at first we were just friends. He had lost his license for stupid kid stuff, squealing tires, loud music, and several speeding tickets, and had in consequence lost his job. My friends and family thought I was nuts when we did start seeing each other for those reasons. He went to traffic school, got his insurance in check, and got a job. Now, 18 years later, he is a wonderful husband, father, and provider, operate a crane. Sometimes you come in people's lives when they're down on their luck. Sure glad I didn't listen to anyone. Story 58, he got nachos on our first movie date. Nachos, I love nachos, but how can you walk into the theater, smell that delicious, tempting popcorn aroma, and think, I think I'll get some nachos, weirdo. Ends up meaning I don't have to share mine, and he's the still best person I know, win-win, 24 years together now. Story 59, she was 15 and very immature to the point she threw my lunch in my face because I was a bit late. We were looking after our beautiful grandson this weekend. Story 60, we were teenagers, and I smoked a lot of weed. He didn't. One of the first times we hung out, we smoked at my place. He can't handle smoking and threw up in the bathroom. Didn't tell me, washed his mouth out with water, and came back, and we started making out again. I tasted the vomit. Not super strongly, but a little bit. I pulled back and was like, WTF, surely this kid would tell me if he's vomited. Now he wouldn't be kissing me. No way in. A little while later, I went to the bathroom and smelt the vomit. I was pretty pissed off. I came out and told him he should have told me he vomited. I basically wrote him off for a bit after that because I was disgusted. But we ended up talking more, and I forgave him. Glad I did because we fell head over heels in love and are still together over 6 years and 2 kids later. Story 61, when I only know my husband for a couple months, we were cuddling, and he said, "You're so cute. I want to cut you into little pieces and eat you." That was 17 years ago, so I think I'm okay. Story 62, I was concerned about her mother's mental health issues. Her mom saw it and received help and became the best mom-in-law a guy could hope for. My wife is nuts, but her crazy matches mine perfectly. In other words, I am one of the lucky Ians that found my yang. Story 63, when I first met my future husband. His room was a mess. We were in undergrad, and he shared an apartment with another guy. Holy, they were not tidy people. I'm not talking about an empty bag of crisps not thrown out or yesterday's dishes still in the sink. Oh no, they were gross humans. My man's room was quite large, basically a large studio flat all on its own, and it was covered from wall to wall with clothes, books, electronics, and trash about 30 centimeters deep uniformly. Honestly, I've never seen a non-hoarder who was that messy. His car was the same huge car and the floor was filled with books, homework, empty soda cans, etc. Anyway, we'd been seeing each other seriously for about 3 months when he got glandular fever mono. I called his mother, and she took him home to get better, since it was the end of the term anyway. I had had the same illness when I was a teen, so I knew he'd be out of commission for a couple of weeks. He left his keys with me, so I took it upon myself to clean his room and car, bag by bag. I took his laundry in my house and cleaned it. I shelved his books, I dusted his electronics, I got new pillows, I made new curtains, I shoveled out his car and detailed all the spilled soda out of it. I found a grand total of 43 in change scattered on the floor of his room that had fallen out his pockets when he threw his clothes down, and I kept that since I found it mostly spent on the curtain fabric and the car washing. When he got back, he was amazed I cleaned everything up, and he said he had always wanted it to look like it did, but he didn't know how to do it. I later learned that his mother did everything for him as a kid, and he had no idea how to do anything for himself, really. We've been together for 15 years, and while he's still a bit careless about picking up after himself, it's merely at the annoying level and not anything like it was when he was in college. He's the greatest guy, and I'm definitely glad I didn't bail when I saw that mess. She was vegetarian, whereas I was almost fully carnivorous. Felt like a gigantic mismatch back then. Now I have a much healthier and balanced diet. And I do meatless Mondays, good for my health, good for the environment. Girlfriend is happy, and I get to have a girlfriend.